Hare Krishna. Welcome to Krishna Book Part 2, class number 6. Krishna is arriving in Mathura, starting chapter 41. And to celebrate, we're going to have some kirtan.
Okay. Beautiful, sweet souls, let's come into a comfortable seat. Sit tall, invite any movement in your neck, your jaw. Take a clearing breath to arrive together. Inhale through your nose, fill up. Open your mouth, exhale, let it go. And our opening prayers, this invocation, this honoring of all of our teachers, the acharyas, and placing ourselves in a mood of receptivity, of opening to receiving knowledge, mercy, the ability to understand, giving our full attention, full gratitude here as we chant these opening prayers. Breath in. Vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasudeva Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Breathe All together. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. One more. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Nitya Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitya Gaura Hari Bol. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Shri Shri Krishna Bhagavan ki, Shri Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki, Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki, Srila Rupa Goswami ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Brahma Bhakti House Sangha and beyond ki. Hari Hari Bol.
Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shrakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Jai, welcome everyone. Yeah, we had some nice reflections. What's that? I remember Tanya was reflecting about how the nature of like how the demons coming, all these demons coming over and over again, kind of answered her question of why there's so many demons. Well, it's so that the devotees learn to take shelter of Krishna. That's a really good perspective of it. And yeah, just the power of association, right? Like these demons are all in Vrindavan associated with bad qualities. And so it's just another reminder about the nature of association. We had some nice reflections on that. And Rini was reflecting on, in Akrura's prayers, Akrura, he mentions so much about the universe and the different material elements, earth, air, water, fire, ether, mind, intelligence, false ego, all the gross and subtle elements. And he's connecting that all to Krishna because, of course, they are connected to Krishna. So then the one of the offshoots of that is that it makes it so that everything in our life is actually a reminder of Krishna, if we take it to be. Yeah, and also, not sure if Eileen's here. No, but yeah, there she is. Yeah, Eileen, you said something interesting in your reflection. Do you want to share what you said in WhatsApp?
Sure. It's just like these realizations that, we can see, like, if you're reading the stories and you're not doing it with a surrendered heart, you see him as this like cowherd boy that's playing along with his friends, but he's like the supreme personality of Godhead.
Yeah.
So like, what am I not seeing in my own life? Like, not just even in my relationship with Krishna, but in relationships with other people. If I'm not doing it with the eyes of a devotee, with like a surrendered heart to Krishna, how much am I missing in my, making me teary. How much am I missing in my life if I'm not looking at it through that lens?
Yeah. And that happens a few times in the 10th canto already. It's happened. Brahma had that experience of thinking, well, this is just a very talkative kind of boy. And Indra had that experience with Krishna, and also the Brahmins and the wives of the Brahmins showed the two different sides of it, because the Brahmins were very fixated on the externals, and they knew all the how of worshiping the Supreme, but they couldn't actually understand Krishna because they didn't actually have devotion for him. It was all very abstract and in their head. It's very intellectual, and so they're doing this sacrifice, and then here comes these boys asking for a donation for Krishna, and Krishna is the whole point of the sacrifice. He's the actual enjoyer of all sacrifices, and they're like, nah, got no time. In fact, they didn't even say anything, they just ignored them. They didn't even acknowledge your existence. Meanwhile, their wives, who were all set to help them with the sacrifice, ditched him, just left everything behind because they actually knew who Krishna was. They had developed devotion for him. And at the end, these externally advanced Brahmins said, well, to hell with all of our religious practices and rituals and understanding and learning, because we actually didn't have any bhakti. We couldn't serve Krishna. We couldn't recognize him. So it's like this thing of like seeing but not seeing. Happens a lot with Krishna. It's going to happen again shortly in Mathura. There's a famous section where Krishna is going to enter the arena where Kamsa plans to kill him. And everybody's going to see him, but they're going to see him from their own perspective. And there's a really nice description of what that looks like for different people. Any other reflections you're having from your reading so far? Say like reflected about how he's been learning the hard way, but not taking bad association. Allison has her hand up.
I just loved the prayers of a Kura chapter because it just felt, especially the last few paragraphs, I had to keep rereading it because it just felt so relevant today. Like, it just
Yeah.
didn't even seem like it was something written however long ago it was, from just the way that he was talking about his personal property and trying to find happiness, accepting everything that's not permanent is permanent. And I loved how he said that our conditioned souls are looking to quench our thirst, but we
Yeah.
just don't know where to find the water. And it just feels so true. And it just, maybe I can't do all those things, but it just kind of helped me zoom out a little and be more of a witness and maybe be less entangled in material nonsense from time to time. So it just felt very relevant to me.
Thank you. It's really amazing how something that was spoken 5,000 years ago and then recorded, written in a book, is still relevant now. It's going to be equally relevant 5,000 years from now. So many external things change, but we see this message of the Bhagavatam is about the internals. And whether you were living in whatever the world looked like 5,000 years ago, or you're now or later, there is that way in which the conditioned soul is trying to quench their thirst. And they're thinking themselves the owner and controller of the objects of their senses, including their family, and everything else associated with their body and the egoistic constructs. And what those things are may change. Like, they didn't have iPhones 5,000 years ago, but it's not important because the attachment to, I don't know, what was important 5,000 years ago, whatever thing you got from your grandmother as a hand-me-down, your attachment you had to that, or your favorite implement if you're a farmer, or your favorite cow, or your family, is the same as what people can have now with their iPhone. The object is not the point. The point is the internal. And Akura is like very explicitly calling that out. It's incredibly relevant.
I think also because he wasn't a demon, and
Yeah.
it just didn't seem as fantastical in this chapter. It just seemed like just a regular person.
Yeah, it was very grounded.
Yeah, it felt very, thank you,
Totally.
grounded.
I thought it was really interesting that you had said that Lord Buddha but there's two
Incarnations.
um,
Buddha
but
and
they hadn't even happened yet. This is like a full-on transcendental like download that
yeah,
Akura
two of the incarnations that Akura mentions, Lord Buddha and Kalki, actually haven't appeared yet. They're not. Well, the Buddha has, but that was in the interim between when he said it and now, and Kalki hasn't even appeared yet.
Yeah,
So
100,000 years.
230,000 years, approximately. You can consult the third chapter of the first canto for the exact year. Yeah, it's pretty far out. He has that vision. He has that vision because he's a devotee. As Narada Muni does. Narada Muni is like accurately predicting some of Krishna's activities before they happen, because he's in touch with the spiritual energy. Yeah, any more reflections? Okay, I think we're ready to jump into chapter 41. Great. Krishna, 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 Hey. Krishna, 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 Hey. Krishna, 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 Rakshama. Krishna, 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 Pahima. Rama Raghava, Rama Raghava, Rama Raghava, Rakshama. Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Pahima. Krishna Book Ki Jai. Okay, we're on Krishna Book chapter 41. Krishna enters Mathura. While Akrura was offering his prayers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Lord disappeared from the water, exactly as an expert dramatic actor changes his dress and assumes his original feature. Remember, what precipitated this was Akrura stopped at a pond, and he went to take his bath, and when he did, he left Krishna and Balaram back in his chariot. When he got to the water, they were in the water. So then he got confused and went back to his chariot, and they were still there. So he thought, well, I must have just imagined it. Went back to the water, and then he saw everything. Krishna is Mahavishnu, Balaram is Sheshanaga, and all the demigods worshiping him. Okay. After the Vishnumurti disappeared, Akrura got out of the water. Finishing the rest of his ritualistic performance, he went near the chariot of Balaram and Krishna and was struck with wonder. Krishna asked whether he had seen something wonderful within the water or in space. Akrura said, "My dear Lord, all wonderful things that are happening within this world, either in the sky or in the water or on the land, are factually appearing in your universal form. So when I have seen you, what wonderful things have I not seen?" This statement confirms the Vedic version that one who knows Krishna knows everything, and that one who has seen Krishna has seen everything, regardless of how wonderful a thing may be. My dear Lord, Akrura continued, there cannot be anything more wonderful than your transcendental form. When I have seen your transcendental form, what is there left to see? After saying this, Akrura immediately started driving the chariot, and by the end of the day, he reached the precincts of Mathura. As they rode from Vrindavan to Mathura, all the passers-by along the way who saw Krishna and Balaram could not help but look at them again and again. In the meantime, the other inhabitants of Vrindavan, headed by Nanda and Upananda, had already reached Mathura by going through the forest, and they were awaiting the arrival of Krishna and Balaram in a garden. Upon reaching the entrance to Mathura, Krishna and Balaram got down from the chariot and shook hands with Akrura. Krishna informed him, "You may go home now because we shall enter Mathura later along with our associates." Akrura replied, "My dear Lord, I cannot go to Mathura alone, leaving you aside. I am your surrendered servant. Please do not try to avoid me. Please come along with me, with your elder brother and cowherd boyfriend, and sanctify my house. My dear Lord, if you come, my home will be sanctified by the dust of your lotus feet. The water emanating from the perspiration of your lotus feet, namely the Ganges, purifies everyone, including the forefathers, the fire god, and all other demigods. Bali Maharaj has become famous simply by washing your lotus feet, and he enjoyed all material opulences and later on was elevated to the highest position of liberation. The Ganges water not only sanctifies the three worlds, but is carried on the head of Lord Shiva. The ancestors of Bhagirath, sanctified by this water, achieved the heavenly planets. O Supreme Lord of Lords, O Master of the universe, one can achieve piety simply by hearing about your transcendental pastimes. O Supreme Narayana, who are praised with select verses, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. On hearing this, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, replied, Akrura, I shall surely come to your home with my elder brother Balaram, but only after killing all the demons who are envious of the Yadu dynasty. In this way, I shall please all my relatives. Akrura became a little disappointed by these words of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but he could not disregard the order. He therefore entered Mathura and informed Kamsa about the arrival of Krishna, and then he entered his own home. After Akrura's departure, Lord Krishna, Balaram, and the cowherd boys entered Mathura to see the city. They observed that the gate of Mathura was made of first-class marble, very well constructed, and that the doors were made of pure gold. There were gorgeous orchards and gardens all around, and the whole city was encircled by canals so that no enemy could enter very easily. They saw that all the crossroads were decorated with gold and that there were copper and brass storehouses for stocking grain. And there were many rich men's houses, all appearing symmetrical as if constructed by one engineer. The houses were decorated with costly jewels, and each and every house had nice compounds of trees, bearing fruits and flowers. The corridors and verandas of the houses were decorated with silk cloth and embroidery work, in jewels and pearls. In front of the balcony windows were pigeons and peacocks walking and cooing. All the grain dealers' shops within the city were decorated with different kinds of flowers and garlands, newly grown grass, and pleasing flowers like narcissus and roses. The entrance doors of the houses were decorated with water pots filled with water. A mixture of water, yogurt, sandalwood pulp, and flowers were sprinkled all around the doors, which were also decorated with burning lamps of different sizes. Over all the doors were decorations of fresh mango leaves and silk festoons. When the news spread that Krishna, Balaram, and the cowherd boys were within Mathura city, all the inhabitants gathered, and ladies and girls immediately went up to the roofs of the houses to see them. They had been awaiting the arrival of Krishna and Balaram with great anxiety. And in their extreme eagerness to see Krishna and Balaram, the ladies did not dress themselves very properly. Some of them placed their clothes in the wrong place. Some anointed their eyes on one side only, and some wore ankle bells only on one leg or wore only one earring. Thus, in great haste, not even decorated properly, they went to see Krishna from the roofs. Some of them had been taking their lunch, but as soon as they heard that Krishna and Balaram were in the city, they left their eating and ran to the roofs. Some of them were in the bathroom, taking their baths, but without properly finishing their baths, they went to see Krishna and Balaram. Some were engaged in feeding their children breast milk, but they put their babies aside and went to see Krishna and Balaram. Passing by very slowly and smiling, Lord Krishna immediately stole their hearts. He who is the husband of the goddess of fortune passed through the street like an elephant. For a very long time, the women of Mathura had heard about Krishna and Balaram and their uncommon characteristics, and they were very much attracted and eager to see them. Now, when they actually saw Krishna and Balaram passing on the street and saw them sweetly smiling, the ladies' joy reached the point of ecstasy. When they actually saw them with their eyes, they took Krishna and Balaram within their hearts and began to embrace them to their fullest desire. Their bodily hair stood up in ecstasy. They had heard of Krishna, but they had never seen him, and now their longing was relieved. After going up on the roofs of the palaces of Mathura, the ladies, their faces joyful, began to shower flowers upon Krishna and Balaram. When the brothers were passing through the streets, all the Brahmins in the neighborhood went out with sandalwood water.
Yeah.
Does it say sandalwood?
It's a sandal water.
Sandal water. I imagine that's sandalwood water. Water that's infused with sandalwood, which is it smells really good and is also very cooling. All the Brahmins in the neighborhood went out with sandal water and flowers and respectfully welcomed them to the city. All the residents of Mathura began to talk among themselves about the elevated and pious activities of the people of Vrindavan. The residents of Mathura were surprised at the pious activities the cowherd men in Vrindavan must have performed in their previous lives to be able to see Krishna and Balaram daily as cowherd boys. While Krishna and Balaram were passing in this way, they saw a washerman and dyer of clothing. Krishna was pleased to ask him for some nice clothing. He also promised that if the washerman would deliver the nicest dyed cloth to him, the washerman would become very happy, and all good fortune would be his. Krishna was not a beggar, nor was he in need of clothing, but by this request he indicated that everyone should be ready to offer Krishna whatever he wants. That is the meaning of Krishna consciousness. Unfortunately, this washerman was a servant of Kamsa, and therefore could not appreciate the demand of Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is the effect of bad association. He could have immediately delivered the clothing to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who promised him all good fortune, but being a servant of Kamsa, the sinful demon could not accept the offer. Instead of being pleased, he was very angry and refused the Lord's request, saying, "How is it that you are asking for clothing which is meant for the king?" The washerman then began to instruct Krishna and Balaram, "My dear boys, in the future don't be so impudent as to ask for things which belong to the king. Otherwise you will be punished by the government men. They will arrest you and punish you, and you will be in difficulty. I have practical experience of this fact. Anyone who unlawfully wants to use the king's property is very severely punished." On hearing this, Lord Krishna, the son of Devaki, became very angry at the washerman, and striking him with the upper portion of his hand, he separated the man's head from his body.
Sheesh.
The washerman fell down dead on the ground. In this way, Lord Krishna confirmed the statement of the Brahma Samhita that every limb of his body is capable of doing everything he likes. Without a sword, but simply with his hand, he cut off the head of the washerman. This is proof that the Supreme Lord is omnipotent. If he wants to do something, he can do it without extraneous help. Of course, as a reminder, he liberated him.
He liberated him. Yeah.
After this ghastly incident, the employees of the washerman immediately dispersed, leaving the clothing. Krishna and Balaram took possession of it and dressed according to their desire. The rest of the clothes were offered to the cowherd boys, who also used them as they desired. What they did not use remained there. Krishna, Balaram, and the boys then proceeded along the main road. In the meantime, a devotee tailor took the opportunity of service and prepared some nice clothes from the cloth for Krishna and Balaram. Thus, being very nicely attired, Krishna and Balaram looked like elephants, dressed with colored clothing on the full moon day or the dark moon day. Krishna was very much pleased with the tailor and gave him the benediction of Sarupya Mukti, which means that after leaving his body, he would be liberated and would attain a four-handed body exactly like that of Narayana in the Vaikuntha planets. So Krishna is reciprocating with people according to how they meet him. One person's liberated, we're not sure how, the details of how he was liberated, maybe in the commentary to that verse in Bhagavatam, but he didn't actually want to do service. One did want to do service, and he got Sarupya Mukti. He's going to get a spiritual body. Krishna also granted him that as long as he would live, he would earn sufficient opulence to be able to enjoy sense gratification. By this incident, Krishna proved that those who are Krishna-conscious devotees will not be lacking material enjoyment of sense gratification. They will have sufficient opportunity for such things, but after leaving this body, they'll be allowed to enter the spiritual planets of Vaikuntha Loka or Krishna Loka, Goloka Vrindavan. After dressing nicely, Krishna and Balaram went to a florist of the name Sudama. As soon as they reached the precinct of his house, the florist immediately came out and with great devotion fell down on his face to offer his respectful obeisances. He offered a nice seat to Krishna and Balarama and asked his assistant to bring out flowers, betel nuts, and pulp of chandana. The florist's welcome greatly satisfied the Lord. The florist very humbly and submissively offered his prayers to the Lord, saying, "My dear Lord, because you have come to my place, I think all my forefathers and all my worshipable superiors are pleased and delivered. My dear Lord, you are the supreme cause of all causes of this cosmic manifestation. But for the benefit of the residents of this earthly planet, you have appeared with your plenary portion to give protection to your devotees and annihilate the demons. You are equally disposed as the friend of all living entities. You are the supersoul, and you do not discriminate between friend and enemy. Yet you are pleased to give your devotees the special result of their devotional activities. My Lord, I am praying that you please tell me whatever you wish me to do, because I'm your eternal servant. If you would order me to do something, it would be a great favor to me." The florist, Sudama, was greatly pleased within his heart by seeing Krishna and Balaram in his place, and thus, as his choicest desire, he made 2 exquisite garlands of various flowers and presented them to the Lord. Krishna and Balarama were very much pleased with his sincere service, and Krishna offered the florist his salutation and benedictions, which he is always prepared to bestow upon the surrendered souls. When the florist was offered benedictions, he begged from the Lord that he might remain his eternal servant in devotional service, and by such service do good to all living creatures. By this, it is clear that a devotee of the Lord in Krishna consciousness should not be satisfied simply by his own advancement in devotional service. He must be willing to work for the welfare of all others. This example was followed by the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. It is therefore stated in a prayer about them, Lokanam Hitakaranau. Vaishnavas or devotees of the Lord are not selfish. Whatever benefits they derive from the Supreme Personality of Godhead as benedictions, they want to distribute to all other persons. That is the greatest of all humanitarian activities. Being satisfied with the florist, Lord Krishna not only gave him whatever benedictions he wanted, but over and above that, he offered him all material opulences, family prosperity, a long duration of life, and whatever else his heart desired within the material world. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 41st chapter of Krishna. Krishna enters Mathura. Jai. It's a pretty notable prayer to want to do good for living entities and have love for Krishna. If I'm not mistaken, I thought he actually prayed for three things. I thought it was in the Bhagavatam, I thought it was the association of devotees, always, love for Krishna, and to do good for all living entities. But I might be wrong. That might be someone else. Any reflections from that chapter?
A reminder to, how do I want to say this? In what we were just in the reflections from the last class, based on Eileen's reflection, you were saying we're seeing, but we're not seeing.
Yeah.
And will we and do we see Krishna? And so I was just thinking about how even in reading this Leela and these pastimes, like we're seeing, but we're not so quickly, we're not seeing. Like as soon as I'm like, he used his hand and he cut the man's head off, like, oh my God, like that's violent, that's aggressive. Was that what he needed to do? Right. And so immediately not seeing. Right?
Seeing surface level.
Seeing surface level and seeing from my worldly perspective and context.
Yeah. Who else do you know that as soon as they kill somebody, they give them supreme spiritual benefit? It doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's not part of
relate to that.
the material arithmetic of the world, like killing bad, not killing good. No, everything Krishna does is good. everything he does. Better he gives you attention than he doesn't give you attention. Because he's all good. And just hearing it is pure fun, even if it does jumble the brain.
And maybe that's part of the point.
Because on one hand, it says such servant or do good to all living creatures, right? You'd hope that as a human that has free will, that you actually would want to do good, but when it comes to Krishna, he can do whatever he wants. And we have to assume that whatever he does is for the good of everyone involved. Is that kind of
well, yeah. If you look at the logic of it, like Krishna can give the benediction to Sudama to be able to do good for all living creatures because he himself has the capacity to do good for all living creatures. He's the super soul. He's the indwelling witness and conscience of all living entities. He's the only thing in common between all living entities. Otherwise, it's just a series of material bodies. He's the actual foundation point. So for him to come in touch with somebody is for their supreme benefit. But what we're seeing in this chapter is that some of the different ways in which people reciprocate with him, right? Akrura is a devotee. He reciprocates one way. Then you have this person who doesn't know anything, he doesn't have any devotion for Krishna. He starts to kind of like give instructions to him. He sees things on surface level. Here's a young boy, a young man asking for stuff that doesn't belong to him. And I'm not going to do any service for him because I'm just going to tell him how the way the world works. And Krishna has given him a shortcut way past the way the world works into liberation, spiritual body, presumably. Again, the nature of his liberation, I don't know. I could look up in the chapter. Then we have a couple of other devotees. The tailor took the cloth that the washerman left and tailored it to Krishna and Balaram's forms and gave them some service and got benedicted. Sudama specifically asked for this benediction. I just looked it up. Sudama, the florist, chose unshakable devotion for Krishna, the supreme soul of all existence, friendship with his devotees, and transcendental compassion for all living beings. It is the three things. Love for Krishna, unshakable love, friendship with his devotees, and transcendental compassion for all living beings. And then Krishna gave him those benedictions, plus long life, strength, beauty, and ever-increasing prosperity. Some extras, some material benedictions as well. It's a pretty good prayer.
Yes.
Pure bhakti for Krishna, unshakable bhakti, friendship with his devotees, and compassion for all living entities. Okay. Anyone else want to comment?
I just have a question. So in the end, if he offers him all material opulences and whatever else his heart desires within the material world, how do we know like he wouldn't succumb to becoming conditioned and forget everything. Like,
We have to assume, I don't know. We don't know. It's a very short interaction we have with Sudama. One would think that Krishna knows that he wouldn't. I mean, there's a little bit of a hint of what kind of consciousness Sudama has. When he knows who he's dealing with, this is Krishna, this is the soul of all souls, and he asks for pure devotion for him, to always have the association and friendship of his devotees, and to do good for all living entities. He doesn't even give like a hint or a sniff of anything material. He could have asked for anything. So presumably this is a person who has no material desires anymore. This is a person who actually is just ready to serve. And Krishna said, done. And while you're running out the clock, do it in comfort and style, because they're not going to be conditioned, because they didn't ask for it. They could have. They could have said, I really want a new PlayStation 6. I really want, Mama needs a new pair of shoes. They didn't. That's why they made the cut in the Bhagavatam. We already had one of those. We had one materialist. They got the karate chop. No more material nonsense for you. You leave. He could have just benedicted that materialistic washerman with whatever he wanted and kept going, but he didn't. He transcended all of that by exiting his body. And he's only giving the material benedictions to Sudama, presumably because he has no material desires. He just wants to reciprocate with his devotee. You get all those things you want, and you also just get comfort and simplicity and opulence and wealth, because actually, as we'll see if we get there, there's another devotee called Sudama, a Brahmana, in the 84th chapter or something of the Krishna book. And Sudama was very attached to living very simply, actually. He was like, that's the one attachment he had left. He was attached to living really simply. He was attached to detachment. And he goes to Krishna, and because he knew Krishna when they were younger, and he pays a visit to him, and they talk about the old days, because they're actually gurukulis together. They served in the home of their spiritual teacher, their guru's ashram together, which is coming up in a few chapters. And they reminisce and this and that. And long story short, Sudama goes back to his home. And when he gets there, he sees that he was very poor. He was a very poor Brahmin living in detachment. He sees that everything's been transformed. His wife has been decorated. She was like practically starving before. In fact, she had to beg him to go because he was too humble. He said, I don't want to ask Krishna for anything, but she made him go because he was also like really little too attached to being detached. And his home, his place of his domicile, was like a palace. And so he only had devotion for Krishna. None of these things were interesting to him, but he was seeing it as Krishna wanted to give me something. And in the commentaries there, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that Krishna was so pleased with that devotee, because that devotee came and offered him a little handful of puffed rice. That's all he came to give. That's all he had, was like a little handful of puffed rice. He tied it in a piece of cloth and brought it with him. But it's like his pathetic gift, materially speaking, right? Krishna has everything, and here's some puffed rice. But it's all he had, and he wanted to give it to Krishna. And Krishna received it from him and was so pleased by his pure devotion that he reciprocated with these opulences. But he thought, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, Krishna thought, just like a cloud who is being worshipped by the farmer is so amazed and impressed by the devotion of the farmer that very sheepishly comes at night when no one's looking and rains and then leaves. Krishna actually thought, I can't reciprocate with this devotee. Why? Because nothing is outside of me. I can't give anything that's outside of me. It's all part of me. But here, this person has given something beyond themselves. They've given this handful of puffed rice with pure devotion for me. All I have to give is just myself. So he was like ashamed to just give heavenly opulence. Because for him, he's like, well, my devotee is better than me, because here they are selflessly giving. I can't be selfless because I am everything, Vishwanath says. So he's looking, in other words, long story short, he's looking to give to his devotees. He's looking to serve his devotees, actually. So when he's doing these little bonus offerings to Sudama asks for the best things. He asks for pure devotion, constant association and friendship with devotees, and to do good for everyone who's not there yet. who's conditioned still. But Krishna gives him that, and he sprinkles all these little other things too. Why? Because he just wants to keep giving to his devotee. I'm just extrapolating from his mentality in a later chapter with someone who coincidentally also happens to be called Sudama, but is a different person. So presumably this florist isn't going to be bewildered. I might be bewildered. I'm not gonna lie. Am I completely detached from material opulence? Maybe, probably not. But Krishna knows. He doesn't generally give benedictions that will bewilder his devotees. That comes up in chapter 88. That's also a dynamic that's discussed.
I was just gonna say that I thought that, getting back to what Eileen had shared, the washerman, I think Krishna realized that the encounter, whatever it was, if he left, this washerman was just gonna forget him anyway. So let me just take care of him and liberate him this way by chopping off his head. Whereas Sudama was already acting in a very humble, loving way, and he knew that giving him any benediction was just adding to his devotion there. So there was no reason for him to do anything else.
Exactly. That's why they appear in the same chapter.
Yeah.
It's a contrast. These are random passersby apparently, but we're seeing the strata of consciousness and how Krishna is all good for everybody, but he doesn't reciprocate exactly the same way because one is actually asking to do service and one isn't.
May I share something?
Yeah.
Oh.
Please.
It has to do with the chapters. I had my hand up and down. I was like, well, it's not directly at the chapters, but when Eileen, you shared the first one before we even started reading, and I've been thinking for the last couple of days. I mean, I was at the Rath Yatra here, and a lot of really, really hard stuff has happened, like to the point where my whole day that was planned, I just cried. I was on the phone. I was trying to take care of things. And the next morning I went down to the deities and I just said, Krishna, what is happening? Like, why, and I just kept, like, I felt like I prayed all the time, and things were just like, a lot of my anartas were coming up. Like, I'm like, I think humility is one that maybe is one that's maybe challenging for me. I don't know, but when I just know that I mean, I associate with devotees, right? And so I know you do as well, Eileen. And I say this because you were saying, like, how do I know? How do I know? How do I know? Right. And I feel the same way, but I think in the last couple of days, like, a lot of my anartas have come up, and I knew because one, I felt comfortable enough to share it with my very good friend who is a devotee, and also she shared with me things, and in a very loving way, and I felt like, and there's something big in my life that's coming up in about 2 weeks, and I feel like Krishna is saying, okay, like, here we go. Are you ready? And so it's like, really, I feel like and it's not like I feel like he's testing me, but in a way I feel like he is. And he's sort of like giving it all at me, like not at me, but he's like taking everything away, like in a certain way, not materially, but a lot of my emotional things. I'm feeling like I have zero control of anything, which I don't anyway, but I'm really feeling it. And I guess, my thought was, at first I was so upset and I'm still sad, I think, but I was really angry and I was, and then I talked asked my devotee friend, can we talk? And like through that conversation, I realized that, like she said to me, I think that, Krishna is sort of like showing you a lot of your anartas. And before you have this big clearing going on, he wants you to see, and he knows that you can take it. He's pushing you because he knows that you can take it, but he wants you to see it because he wants you to work on it and be better, be a better version of who you are. You know, not that I'm bad, but, you know, work on things that I think I could be better at. And I think we all have that. But I think that I don't know if that maybe helps you at all. I just, because it's something that just happened to me in the last like 2 to 3 days. It's been happening. And I feel like, oh, Krishna, like, wow, like, what is happening? You know, and
Well,
yeah.
we see the power of one of the things that Sudama asked for is friendship with devotees. You know, is like you gotta take shelter somewhere. You know, so you took shelter of the deities and you took shelter of devotee.
I took both. And I just, like, you know, the old me would have been like, I can't believe it, you know, like really lost the anger notch. And I didn't. I just said, like, what is it he's trying to teach me? What am I trying to be? What is the lesson?
Yeah, it's a sign of growth. You're
Yeah.
trying to kind of connect the stuff you're going through to Krishna instead of just look at it as a disconnected reality from Krishna.
Right, like, oh, poor me. I can't believe it. Like, I haven't had that mood at all, which I'm like, wow. But yeah, I think it's, you know, I'm seeing things in a different way, which shows a lot of growth, like you said, for me. But I think that's kind of what you were talking about,
Yeah.
maybe.
Shy.
I don't know.
Keep taking shelter of Krishna and the devotees.
Mhm.
Eileen.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
She's muted.
You're muted.
The word balm came up. Like, this story was like kind of like a balm for my soul, because like kind of thinking through, I'm going through like a personal thing where it's like, where am I spending my time in my association, right? And like it you know, Kishori knows. And so it's interesting, like, to have, it's like this story is like a balm. It's like, yeah, you know, when you look at, they specifically say like who your association is with can help frame, are you looking with your Krishna eyes, are you looking with your material eyes? And so for me, this is a really sweet remembrance of like, okay, we can either be the washerman or we can be the florist, right? And what eyes are we using, who are we associating ourselves with is really important. So it was just kind of like a sweet, like, it made me feel a little bit better about some things that I'm like conflicted with. Like, okay, like if I look at this with my Krishna eyes, kind of know the answer, right? And if I look at it with my material eyes, it's different. And so that realization is really beautiful. And the other thing that jumped out at me, real short and sweet, is like, it kind of, there was a line here that was very remembrance for me of the Bhagavad Gita, when, you know, Arjuna is like, I just want to go in a cave and like just want to be. And like, you know, when we look at the florist, he was saying like, I want to do good to all creatures and work for the welfare of all. And they say that like just having like this devotional service, like there's other parts to this, like there is your dharma. So I loved, there was like this beautiful kind of addition of like, for like, again, strengthening the concept of association, and then also strengthening like doing work in this world and doing our dharma, and not just like escaping and just like, you know, forgetting all the things, like we still have to live in the world. So that was like a really short passage, but had a lot of like recurrent themes kind of jumping out in it.
I
Yeah.
gotta say, that is beautiful, Eileen. Am I looking at this with my Krishna eyes?
Krishna eyes.
I am gonna use that from now on. What was the other one? My Krishna eyes or my
Material.
material eyes? That's big.
Yeah, it kind of couples with, somebody shared with me, I'm a devotee at Super Soul, actually said like, am I driving the chariot or am I letting Krishna drive the chariot? So it's like those two things kind of go hand in hand. And if we can like zoom out and be like, okay, what am I doing here? We may not get the answer we want, but it kind of becomes kind of apparent.
Right. Ready for chapter 42?
Yeah.
Okay. Chapter 42. The breaking of the bow in the sacrificial arena. After leaving the florist's place, Krishna and Balaram saw a hunchbacked young woman carrying a dish of sandalwood pulp through the streets. Since Krishna is the reservoir of all pleasure, He wanted to make all his companions joyous by cutting a joke with the hunchbacked woman. Krishna addressed her, "Oh, tall young woman, who are you? Tell me, for whom are you carrying this sandalwood pulp in your hand? I think you should offer this sandalwood to me, and if you do so, I am sure you'll be fortunate." Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he knew everything about the hunchback. By his inquiry, he indicated that there was no use in serving a demon. She would do better to serve Krishna and Balaram, and get an immediate result of the service. The woman replied to Krishna, "My dear Shyamasundara, dear beautiful dark boy, you may know that I am engaged as a maidservant of Kamsa. I am supplying him pulp of sandalwood daily. The king is very much pleased with me for supplying this nice thing, but now I see that there is no one who can better be served by this pulp of sandalwood than you two brothers." Being captivated by the beautiful features of Krishna and Balaram, their talking, their smiling, their glancing, and their other activities, the hunchbacked woman began to smear all the pulp of sandalwood over their bodies with great satisfaction and devotion. The two transcendental brothers, Krishna and Balaram, were naturally beautiful and had beautiful complexions, and they were nicely dressed in colorful garments. The upper portions of their bodies were already very attractive, and when the hunchbacked woman smeared their bodies with sandalwood pulp, they looked even more beautiful. Krishna was very much pleased by this service, and he began to consider how to reward her. In other words, in order to draw the attention of the Lord, the Krishna-conscious devotee has to serve him in great love and devotion. Krishna cannot be pleased by any action other than transcendental loving service unto him. Thinking like this, Lord Krishna pressed the feet of the hunchback woman with his toes, and capturing her cheeks with his fingers, gave her a jerk in order to make her straight. At once the hunchback woman became a beautiful straight girl with broad hips, thin waist, and very nice, well-shaped breasts. Since Krishna was pleased with the service of the hunchback woman, and since she was touched by Krishna's hands, she became the most beautiful girl among women. This incident shows that by serving Krishna, the devotee immediately becomes elevated to the most exalted position in all respects. Devotional service is so potent that anyone who takes to it becomes qualified with all godly qualities. Krishna was attracted to the hunchback woman not for her beauty, but for her service. As soon as she rendered service, she immediately became the most beautiful woman. A Krishna-conscious person does not have to be qualified or beautiful. After becoming Krishna-conscious and rendering service unto Krishna, they become very much qualified and beautiful. Actually, I have experience of this, having served with devotees for the last 15 years. Practicing? No. But just the general, just saying, did I meet any hunchback people? No, not specifically that, but just the general principle of like, devotees are just beautiful. They're just really good to look at. There's a way in which, like, when people give their life to Krishna, they become really luminous. They just become very bright, and because like the real self is shining through, you know. And like I've met people who are missing teeth or are in their 80s or whatever. There's just some beautiful quality that when you look at them, you're just drawn because they're advanced devotees, you know. And just to offer my 2 cents to this principle that's coming up here. When the woman was turned by Krishna's favor into an exquisitely beautiful young girl, she naturally felt very much obliged to Krishna, and she was also attracted by his beauty. Without hesitation, she caught the rear part of his cloth and began to pull it. She smiled flirtatiously and admitted that she was agitated by lusty desires. She forgot that she was on the street, and before the elder brother of Krishna and his friends. She frankly proposed to Krishna, "My dear hero, I cannot leave you in this way. You must come to my place. I am already very much attracted to your beauty, so I must receive you well, and since you are the best among males, you must also be very kind upon me." In plain words, she proposed that Krishna can come to her home and satisfy her lusty desires. Krishna, of course, felt a little bit embarrassed in front of his elder brother Balaram, but he knew that the girl was simple and attracted, therefore he simply smiled at her words. Looking toward his cowherd boyfriends, he replied to the girl, "My dear beautiful girl, I am very much pleased by your invitation, and I must come to your home after finishing my other business here. Such a beautiful girl as you are the only means for solace for persons like us, who are away from home and not married. Certainly a suitable girlfriend like you can give us relief from all kinds of mental agitation." Krishna satisfied the girl in this way with sweet words. Leaving her there, he proceeded down the street of the marketplace, where the citizens were prepared to receive him with various kinds of presentations, especially betel nuts, flowers, and sandalwood pulp. So as the Acharyas point out with this devotee, we're seeing like person after person, different levels of consciousness. This is a mixed devotee. This is a devotee who has someone who has devotion for Krishna and also has material desires. We can see by their reaction to Krishna's giving them a beautiful body that their first inclination is to enjoy with it. And they're attracted to Krishna as the supreme person, but they're also attracted to him as being a very attractive man, so they proposition him. So there's a mixture of desire for spiritual benediction and desire for material benefit.
It's like when we are,
Well,
most of us.
I mean, everyone, yeah, people can speak for themselves, you know. But yeah, it's described. This is not pure devotional desire. This is mixed desire, and Krishna is reciprocating with them as per their desire. They're getting some devotional benefit, and they're also getting some material benediction. So we can see that Krishna is like mirroring with the living entity what's happening in their heart and meeting them in that. In all cases, whether it's the person who is inimical to Krishna, the pure devotee of Krishna, the mixed devotee of Krishna, Krishna has no personal motivation. You know, he has nothing to gain and nothing to lose. He's giving himself freely to all these people, and they're seeing him according to their capacity and interacting with him and desiring from him according to their capacity and where they're at, and he's just meeting them. The mercantile men in the market worship Krishna and Balaram with great respect. When Krishna was passing through the street, all the women in the surrounding houses came to see him, and some of the younger ones almost fainted, being captivated by his beauty. Their hair and tight clothing loosened, and they forgot where they were standing. Krishna next inquired from the citizens as to the location of the place of sacrifice. Kamsa had arranged for the sacrifice called Dhanur Yagya, and to designate this particular sacrifice, he had placed a big bow near the sacrificial altar. The bow was very big and wonderful and resembled a rainbow in the sky. Within the sacrificial arena, this bow was protected by many constables and watchmen engaged by King Kamsa. As Krishna and Balaram approached the bow, they were warned not to go nearer. But Krishna ignored this warning. He forcibly went up and immediately took the big bow in his left hand. After stringing the bow in the presence of the crowd, he drew it and broke it at the middle into two parts, exactly as an elephant breaks sugarcane in the field. Everyone present appreciated Krishna's power. The sound of the bow cracking filled both sky and land and was heard by Kamsa. When Kamsa heard what had happened, he began to fear for his life. The caretakers of the bow, who were standing by watching, became very angry, and with their respective weapons in hand, they rushed toward Krishna, shouting, "Arrest him! Arrest him! Kill him! Kill him!" Krishna and Balaram were surrounded. When they understood the sinister motives of the guards, they became angry, and taking up the two pieces of the broken bow, they began to beat down all of Kamsa's caretakers. While this turmoil was going on, Kamsa sent a small group of troops to assist the caretakers, but Krishna and Balaram fought with them also and killed them and liberated. After this, Krishna did not proceed further into the sacrificial arena, but went out the gate and proceeded toward their resting camp. Along the way, he visited various places in Mathura city with great delight. Seeing the activities and wonderful prowess of Krishna, all the citizens of Mathura began to consider the two brothers to be demigods who had come down to Mathura, and they all looked upon them with great astonishment. The two brothers strolled carefree in the street, not caring for the law and order of Kamsa. As sunset approached, Krishna, Balaram, and their cowherd boyfriends went to the outskirts of the city, where all their carts were assembled. Thus Krishna and Balaram gave some preliminary hints of their arrival to Kamsa, and he could understand what severe type of danger was awaiting him the next day in the sacrificial arena. When Krishna and Balaram had been going from Vrindavan to Mathura, the inhabitants of Vrindavan had imagined the great fortune of the citizens of Mathura in being able to see the wonderful beauty of Krishna, who is worshipped by his pure devotees, as well as the goddess of fortune. The fantasies of the residents of Vrindavan were now actually realized, for the citizens of Mathura became fully satisfied by seeing Krishna. When Krishna returned to his camp, he was taken care of by his servants, who washed his lotus feet, gave him a nice seat, and offered him milk and palatable dishes. Krishna likes to have hot milk before he goes to bed. After taking supper and thinking of the next day's program, he very peacefully took rest. Thus, he passed the night there. And we're going to contrast that with how Kamsa's night went. On the other side, when Kamsa came to understand about the breaking of his wonderful bow and the killing of the caretakers and soldiers by Krishna, he could partially realize the power of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He could realize that the 8th son of Devaki had appeared and that now his death was imminent. And this is somebody who had been fearing his death, struggling against his death, in denial of his death, fighting against his death, committing murder to prevent his death for years now.
Yeah.
So Kamsa is like the hallmark epitome of somebody who's desperate to never leave the material world. Thinking of his imminent death, he was restless the entire night. He began to have many inauspicious visions, and he could understand that Krishna and Balaram would approach the precincts of the city were his messengers of death. Kamsa saw various kinds of inauspicious signs while both awake and dreaming. So he's like not really sleeping, but in and out, he's having these waking and sleeping nightmares. When he looked in the mirror, he could not see his head, although the head was actually present. He saw the luminaries in the sky in double, although there was only one set factually. He began to see holes in his shadow, and he heard a high buzzing sound within his ears. All the trees before him appeared to be made of gold, and he could not see his own footprints in dust or muddy clay. In dreams, he saw various kinds of ghosts being carried in a carriage drawn by donkeys. He also dreamed that someone gave him poison, and he was drinking it. He dreamed also that he was going naked with a garland of flowers and was smearing oil all over his body. Thus, as Kamsa saw various signs of death, while both awake and sleeping, he could understand that death was certain, and thus in great anxiety, he could not rest that night. Just after the night expired, he busily arranged for the wrestling match. What a hell.
Yeah. About night terrors.
The wrestling arena was nicely cleansed and decorated with flags, festoons, and flowers. And the match was announced by the beating of kettle drums. The platform appeared very beautiful due to streamers and flags. Different types of galleries were arranged for respectable persons, kings, brahmanas, and kshatriyas. The various kings had reserved thrones, and others had arranged seats also. Kamsa finally arrived, accompanied by various ministers and secretaries, and he sat on the raised platform especially meant for him. Unfortunately, although he was sitting in the center of all his governing executive heads, his heart was palpitating in fear of death. Cruel death evidently does not care. Even for a person as powerful as Kamsa, when death comes, it does not care for anyone's exalted position. When everything was complete, the wrestlers who were to exhibit their skills before the assembly walked into the arena. They were decorated with nice ornaments and dress. Some of the famous wrestlers were Chanura, Mushtaka, Shala, Huta, and Toshala. Being enlivened by the musical concert, they passed through with great alacrity. All the respectable cowherd men who came from Vrindavana, headed by Nanda, were also welcomed by Kamsa. After presenting Kamsa with the milk products they had brought with them, the cowherd men also took their respective seats by the side of the king, on a platform especially meant for them. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 42nd chapter of Krishna, the breaking of the bow in the sacrificial arena. All right, any comments?
Gives me a whole new perspective of self-serving.
Whole new perspective of
Self-serving.
self-serving.
Kamsa just like,
Yeah, how selfish he is.
and he
Obsessed.
obsessed to the point where he hearing his own death. He's like laying it all out.
And it's the most terrifying thing for him.
And he's doing all.
Yeah. Srila Prabhupada explains that death is like a cat, that in the jaws of the cat, one has a certain kind of experience. The prey of the cat, well, the prey of the cat has the experience of mortal terror. And the kitten also gets carried by the jaws of the cat. But for them, it's just free ride from point A to point B. And so this is the consciousness of a materialist. And Kamsa is like the emblem of the pure materialist versus the devotee. The devotee has no fear of death because Krishna is everywhere and in everything. Wherever they're going, it's just a change of venue for service. And for Kamsa, it's an entire lifetime of running in fear, sending assassins, doing sinful activities to protect his own body, which is, after all, destined to die one way or another. And now he's having the world's worst sleepless night. Any other reflections?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So this chapter is like really like, it starts with one thing and goes completely to another thing. Like there isn't really a noticeable tie between the two events, between the woman and then the breaking the bow. Like they're two totally different. Like, can you explain why they're brought together in this chapter the way they are, and what's the symbolism of that?
Well, just my understanding is that the woman is carrying over from, her name is Kubja, by the way. It's not mentioned here, but her name is Kubja. She's carrying over from what we had earlier with the washer, the tailor, and the florist. Krishna reciprocating with different living entities in different ways. The breaking of the bow is Krishna announcing his arrival. And it's basically the beginning of his interaction with Kamsa. He's ringing the bell on the beginning of his interaction with Kamsa. So as soon as he breaks that bow, Kamsa hears it. It's so loud. And Kamsa gets word that someone has broken the bow, and he knows it must be Krishna. And then he goes to bed. Krishna, he just like, great, I'm a hot milk and go to sleep. And then we're seeing Kamsa like tossing and turning, sweating, imagining himself dying in millions of different ways. So it's like Krishna is reciprocating with all these devotees, and now he's going to reciprocate with Kamsa. So it's different because Kamsa's level of consciousness is different. Kamsa's a terrorist. He's been sending people to kill babies to try to kill Krishna. That's where he's at. So it seems different, but really from Krishna's point of view, it's just reciprocate with this person, reciprocate with that person, now with this person, now with Kamsa, you know? But yeah, I mean, you can almost think of like Kubja, the hunchback, as being in that, like she could have been in the last chapter. It would have worked just as well there. And I think if we start now, we can maybe finish this 43rd chapter. What do you think? You can try. The killing of the elephant, Kuvalyapida. After taking their baths and finishing all other morning duties, Krishna and Balaram could hear the beating of the kettle drums in the wrestling arena. Imagine that, the drums beating for this festival. They immediately prepared themselves to proceed to the spot to see the fun. When Krishna and Balaram reached the gate of the wrestling arena, they saw a big elephant of the name Kuvalyapida being tended by a caretaker riding on its head. The caretaker was deliberately blocking their entrance by keeping the elephant in front of the gateway. Krishna could understand the purpose of the caretaker, and he prepared himself by tightening his clothes before combating the elephant. He addressed the caretaker in a very grave voice, as if resounding as a cloud. "You miscreant caretaker, give way and let me pass through the gate. If you block my way, I shall send you and your elephant to the house of death personified." The caretaker, being thus insulted by Krishna, became very angry. And in order to challenge Krishna, as was previously planned, he provoked the elephant to attack. The elephant then moved before Krishna like inevitable death. It rushed toward him and tried to catch him with its trunk, but Krishna very dexterously moved behind the elephant. Being able to see only to the end of its trunk, the elephant could not see Krishna hiding behind its legs, but it tried to capture him with its trunk. Krishna again very quickly escaped capture, and he again ran behind the elephant and caught its tail. Holding the elephant by its tail, Krishna began to pull it, and with very great strength, he dragged it for at least 25 yards. Just as Garuda drags an insignificant snake, Krishna pulled the elephant from this side to that, from right to left, just as he used to pull a calf by its tail in his childhood. After this, Krishna went in front of the elephant and gave it a strong slap. He then slipped away from the elephant's view and ran to its back. Then, falling down on the ground, Krishna placed himself in front of the elephant's two legs and caused it to trip and fall. Krishna immediately got up, but the elephant, thinking that he was still lying down, tried to push an ivory tusk through the body of Krishna by forcibly stabbing it into the ground. Although the elephant was harassed and angry, the caretaker riding on its head tried to provoke it further. The elephant then rushed madly toward Krishna. As soon as it came within reach, Krishna caught hold of the trunk and pulled the elephant down. When the elephant and caretaker fell, Krishna jumped up on the elephant, broke off one of its tusks, and with it, killed the elephant and the caretaker also. After killing the elephant, Krishna took the ivory tusk on his shoulder, decorated with drops of perspiration and sprinkled with the blood of the elephant. He looked very beautiful. And thus he proceeded toward the wrestling arena. Lord Balaram took the other tusk of the elephant on his shoulder. Accompanied by their cowherd boyfriends, they entered the arena. This is like the
Original Gladiator.
This is the origin of all action movies right here.
You hear the soundtrack music.
Are you not entertained? So this is a famous section. When Krishna entered the wrestling arena with Balaram and his friends, and their friends, he appeared differently to different people according to their different relationships, rasas, with him. Krishna is the reservoir of all pleasure and all kinds of rasas, both favorable and unfavorable. He appeared to the wrestlers exactly like a thunderbolt. To the people in general, he appeared as the most beautiful personality. To the females, he appeared to be the most attractive male, Cupid personified, and thus he increased their lust. The cowherd men who were present there looked upon Krishna as their own kinsman, coming from the same village of Vrindavan. The impious Kshatriya kings who were present saw him as the strongest ruler and their chastiser. To the parents of Krishna, Nanda and Yashoda, he appeared to be the most loving child. To Kamsa, the king of the Bhoja dynasty, he appeared to be death personified. To the unintelligent, he appeared to be an incapable personality. To the yogis present, he appeared to be the super soul. To the members of the Vrishni dynasty, he appeared to be the most celebrated descendant. Thus appreciated differently by different kinds of people present, Krishna entered the wrestling arena with Balaram and his cowherd boyfriends. Having heard that Krishna had already killed the elephant Kuvalyapida, Kamsa knew beyond doubt that Krishna was formidable. He thus became very much afraid of him. Krishna and Balaram had long arms. They were beautifully dressed, and they were attractive to all the people assembled there. They were dressed as if they were going to act on a dramatic stage, and they drew the attention of all people. The citizens of Mathura city who saw Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, became very much pleased and began to look upon his face with insatiable glances, as if they were drinking the nectar of heaven. Seeing Krishna gave them so much pleasure that it appeared as if they were not only drinking the nectar of seeing his face, but were also smelling the aroma and licking up the taste of his body, and were embracing him and Balaram with their arms. They began to talk among themselves about the two transcendental brothers. For a long time they had heard of the beauty and activities of Krishna and Balarama, but now they were personally seeing them face to face. They thought that Krishna and Balaram were two plenary incarnations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayana, who had appeared in Vrindavan. The citizens of Mathura began to recite Krishna's pastimes, his birth as the son of Vasudeva, his being taken into the care of Nanda Maharaj and his wife in Gokula, and all those events leading to his coming to Mathura to favor them. They spoke of the killing of the demon Putana, as well as the killing of Trinavarta, who came as a whirlwind. They also recalled the deliverance of the twin brothers from within the Yamala Arjuna trees. The citizens of Mathura spoke among themselves. Shankachuda, Keshi, Dhenukasura, and many other demons were killed by Krishna and Balaram in Vrindavana. Krishna also saved all the cowherd men of Vrindavana from a devastating fire. He chastised the Kaliya snake in the water of the Yamuna, and he curbed the false pride of the heavenly king Indra. Krishna held up the great Govardhana hill in one hand for 7 continuous days, and saved all the people of Gokula from incessant rain, hurricane, and hailstorm. They also began to remember other enlivening activities. The damsels of Vrindavan were so much pleased by seeing Krishna's beauty and participating in his activities that they forgot the troubles of material existence. By seeing Krishna and thinking of him, they forgot all sorts of fatigue. The Mathura citizens, what's that?
We got a little review of everything.
Yeah. The Mathura citizens discussed the dynasty of Yadus, saying that because of Krishna's appearance in this dynasty, the Yadus would remain the most celebrated family in the whole universe. The citizens of Mathura then began to talk about Balaram. They spoke of his very beautiful lotus petal eyes, and they remarked of him, "This boy has killed the Pralamba demon and many others also." While they were thus talking about the activities of Krishna and Balaram, They heard the vibrations of different bands announcing the wrestling match. The famous wrestler Chanura thus began to talk with Krishna and Balaram. My dear Krishna and Balaram, he said, we have heard about your past activities. You are great heroes, and therefore the king has called you. We have heard that your arms are very strong. The king and all the people present here desire to see a display of your wrestling abilities. A citizen should be obedient and please the mind of the ruling king. Acting in that way, the citizen attains all kinds of good fortune. One who does not care to act obediently is made unhappy because of the king's anger. You are cowherd boys, and we have heard that while tending your cows in the forest, you enjoy wrestling with each other. We wish, therefore, for you to join with us in wrestling so that all the people present here, including the king, will be pleased. Krishna immediately understood the purpose of Chanura's statements, and he prepared to wrestle with him. But according to the time and circumstances, he spoke as follows. You are a subject of the king of the Bhojas, and you live in the jungle. We are also indirectly his subjects, and we try to please him as far as possible. This offer of wrestling is a great favor of his, but the fact is that we are simply boys. We sometimes play in the forest of Vrindavan with our friends who are our own age. We think that to combat persons of equal age and strength is good for us, but to fight great wrestlers like you would not be good for the audience. It would contradict their religious principles. Krishna thus indicated that the celebrated strong wrestlers should not challenge Krishna and Balaram to fight. In reply to this, Chanura said, My dear Krishna, we can understand very well that you are neither a child nor a young man. You are transcendental to everyone, as is your big brother Balaram. You have already killed the elephant Kvalyapida, who was capable of fighting thousands of other elephants. You have killed him in a wonderful way, because of your strength. It behooves you to compete with the strongest wrestlers amongst us. I therefore wish to wrestle with you, and your elder brother Balaram will wrestle with Mushtaka. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 43rd chapter of Krishna, the killing of the elephant Kvalyapida. We'll end there for the day. 3-chapter day, we did it. Let's have some more reflections, questions, or comments.
No question.
Yes.
So I've been thinking about this a lot with the demons too, but these wrestlers, I know that they are, I guess, feeling like they're under Kamsa's rule, but do they know that they're going to be liberated? Like, what's with the death wish? Like they're throwing down with somebody that's clearly going to kill them. Why?
Why? They may not think that Krishna can defeat them. They may think that they may think they're stronger. I mean, materially, they should be. That's why Krishna says, we usually just wrestle with other boys our age, our guy friends. Like, you're like pros, this is not really a fair fight. And in fact, in the next chapter, as the fighting starts here in the audience, but the audience in the wrestling arena were not very much satisfied because the combatants did not appear to be equally matched. They considered Krishna and Balaram to be mere boys before Chanura and Mushtaka, who were the strongest wrestlers, as solid as stone. And then some of them began to protest, like, this isn't right. Call the fight off. This can't happen, So that's happening in the audience. So perhaps Chanura and Mushtaka, who'd been trained as wrestlers, they've got to be the best of the best, because that's who else would Kamsa hire. And they've been hired by Kamsa. They're loyal to him to kill Krishna and Balaram. At this point, they're not going to back off. Like, they've already committed to this plan of action. So maybe they're demons. Maybe they're just like, whatever Kamsa says is good for me because I'm his servant. They're just servants of the big demon. Or maybe they're just so intoxicated with their chest press numbers and their deadlifts and,
Their egos.
they're gym bros. They're the original gym bros. Meatheads. Yeah. Do you even lift, bro, Krishna? And then they're challenging him and they're thinking they can take him on to an arm wrestling match. And they're about to get,
Crushed.
predictably, for us. In context, we know they're going to get crushed.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the thing, is that in the moments, like, everybody's reciprocating with Krishna according to where they're at. They don't realize not everybody realizes this is Krishna Lila and who he is, Kubja knows some things, the devotees in Vrindavan know some things, the devotees in Mathura know some other things, but everybody's only got a certain level of vision. Basically, people are just like absorbed, like, okay, the yogis see him as super soul. The wrestlers saw him as a strong wrestler. The kings who were impious saw him as their chastiser. The women saw him as the haughty of all haughties, you know? And the devotees seeing him as their son and their friend and their family member. And like, so presumably Chandra and Mushtaka are like, you know, he's dead meat. It's
Well, the other thing I think
it's
so
right.
wild is Krishna coming into town and being just like, oh, look at this beautiful bow. Crack. I'm here. Bring it on. Like, you know, he's I don't know. It's interesting.
I mean, you know, like there's a way in which you can see in movies and stuff, people like somebody with a little swagger,
Yeah.
but who's a little bit of a gangster, who's like fearless. Krishna's doing that, but he's all good. He's actually like not in the modes of nature. He's just got that swagger, but it's transcendental swagger. So he's here. He's like, hey, what's up? You should give me that clothes. Those clothes, like I think they really fit me well. You know, I want those flowers over there. What do you think? You know, he's just like taking what he wants, but unlike when some material man does it or woman, it's actually all good for everybody, right? So he's like, liberate this person, give this person pure devotional service, give this, give that, and it is pretty far out how he walks in and does all this stuff, like swagger,
Making me think.
cracks.
Sorry. I'm thinking of like he's Scott Baio. Like the gopis have a picture of him on the wall. Like, you know, like he's the hottie, right? He's just
Yeah, that's a little 30 years
Tanya,
ago. No one knows who Scott Baio is.
Tanya knows.
I do.
Okay, thank you. Somebody else. Nancy knows.
Yeah, because that's one of the levels of reciprocation is that they don't actually have any devotion for him, but they're attracted to men. Here's the hottest man. So,
There's also that incredible teasing nature that
Mm.
Krishna's showing in here, where he's teasing the elephant, and then he's going to tease the wrestlers, and he's like, you know, I'm
Yeah.
not sort of taking this all that seriously.
he's going to tease Kamsa too.
Yeah,
I'll elaborate on that next week when we read it, because Kamsa is going to get what's coming to him, but Krishna does it with a tease first.
Yeah.
Krishna's really got a sense of humor. You know, when he was doing the whole thing with the elephant, I was reminded of like Looney Tunes, you know, Bugs Bunny. It's like he slaps the guy, goes behind him, pulls his tail, falls on the ground, makes him trip. It's very like Bugs Bunny, just like gooning on, like trolling on, you know, Yosemite Sam or Elmer Fudd or something. Maybe that's why these things are so attractive. Is the ultimate underdog. Here's Krishna, just absolutely having a comedy show with. And I don't know if you've ever seen a video of a mad elephant. Like when elephants go crazy, when they actually like go nuts, you need like a tank. Like a Jeep isn't enough. Like these things, they're out of control. You can shoot a bunch of bullets in them, it doesn't stop them. They're actually like insane. They'll knock over things, they'll trash buildings. It's a whole, you know, Indonesia or India, if it ever happens, you have to come with like an army of tranquilizer darts. But Krishna's just going full Bugs Bunny on him.
Yeah,
To not be so funny, it's like how ridiculous we must look to Krishna at times, like with all the stuff that we do. Like we're like that elephant, we're like tripping over ourselves and falling on ourselves and like chasing our tail. Like it's just like we can be the elephant a lot of the time, and like it's just so ridiculous if you zoom out and kind of look at like what we do down here. It's like,
yeah, we're basically Wile E. Coyote. And the idea that we can be happy is like the Roadrunner, just chasing it over and over and over again. And Krishna's like just watching the cartoon laughing. I mean, you know, not at our expense, but it is laughable. The liberated souls are they find it laughable. In fact, in the 12th canto of the Bhagavatam, the Bhumi, the personified planet Earth, she has a sarcastic speech she gives. She says, look at all these kings. They live for such a flash of time. They're coming, they're here and they're gone in 100 years. And in their brief life, all they have time for is to struggle and fight to try to own me, plant their flag in me. And it's not enough that they wanted to plant a flag in me, they try to take over the water too. They want to have everything under the control, even though they can't even like live long enough to enjoy it. They come and they go and they come and they go. Each one comes and says, now it's mine. And she's just sitting here like laughing about it, like fools. Because it's Mother Earth. She has the perspective to see. So it is actually like amusing from a liberated point of view, how seriously people take the whole material game.
Yeah, we need to get like, well, I know Cody, a devotee who's like in the Hollywood business, like videography and stuff, but this is like, a sword in the stone. So the movie Sword in the Stone meets like A Knight's Tale meets
Lord of the Rings.
Gladiator, Lord of the Rings, and yet this is like,
yeah, we need a transcendental, like a
Transcendental.
devotee run Mahabharata movie or Krishna Book movie. It would be absolutely epic.
cool.
But it has to be made by a devotee, otherwise it'd be worthless. It'd be like,
It would just be a Hollywood movie.
yeah, did miss the point.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's a lot of food for thought. So let's stop for the day. We read chapters 39, 40, and 41. No.
41, 42, 43.
41, 42, and 43. That's right. Yeah. And please reflect in the WhatsApp whatever you heard. It was interesting. You can, for example, about how Krishna reciprocates differently with different living entities, mixed devotees, pure materialists, absolute demons. The transcendental Bugs Bunny cartoon that is Krishna teasing the demons and defeating them. And or reflect on, what would you do if you saw Krishna? What would you ask for? Where are you at? And to our YouTube listeners and viewers, Hare Krishna. See you in the virtual space. See you next week for Kamsa's imminent demise. Jai. Shri Krishna Book ki jai.
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Hare Hare. That's all, folks.
Yes. Happy ball.